Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the speakers, Professor Bello, for your most illuminating messages. I would also like to thank the organizers of this forum for allowing Amnesty International the opportunity to participate. Indeed, the phenomenon of lawfare has posed a veritable challenge to human rights defenders and activists here in the Philippines and all the world over. As our distinguished speakers have correctly pointed out, one proof of this is the unremitting persecution being faced by the ever-brave Senator Laila de Lima, whom Amnesty considers a prisoner of conscience. Actually, I have here just one of the several dozens of postcards containing messages of support for and solidarity with the senator all the way from the US. Amnesty International USA initiated the postcard drive, and I'll be sure to hand these over to our friends from the center's team later today. And yes, as we speak, many other prisoners of conscience are deprived of their freedom by their governments in various parts of the world: Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, China, and Russia, just to name a few. Through research and campaign, Amnesty International continues to draw attention to the deplorable situation of these prisoners of conscience, to pressure the authorities to drop all politically motivated charges against them and order their immediate and unconditional release. Some people look at the law as precisely and inherently a weapon, a tool constantly wielded by governments to subjugate and negate ideologies that do not conform to the dominant system. But the law, as Professor Falk incisively argues, is a double-edged sword. As is sometimes the case with power, while it subdues and oppresses, the law nevertheless provides spaces for negotiation. Amnesty International and many other groups, for example, reference domestic and international guarantees relating to civil and political rights when discussing the situation of Senator De Lima or of human rights defenders in general who are harassed, attacked, and vilified solely on the basis of their peaceful and legitimate work. The research group IBON, as I understand, has also filed a complaint before the Office of the Ombudsman against government and military officials who have been red tagging them or accusing them and many other groups and individuals of links to communist groups without credible evidence. In their complaint, IBON cited as their basis the Ombudsman Act of 1989 and the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. These are just a few examples of how the law can likewise be used to promote respect for and protect people's freedoms. I understand, though, that such a recourse carries with it certain limitations. There is, of course, the question of judicial independence, or of whether or not domestic courts have the courage and the ability to rule in favor of human rights defenders in the face of increasing government pressure. There is as well the issue of limited funding for legal action that targeted groups have versus the unlimited resources of the state. A possible remedy, for example, is by strengthening these organizations' capacity to initiate complaints and counter charges, including by supporting lawyers' groups that come to their defense often on a pro bono basis. This is not at all to say that when the law is weaponized against certain groups of people, the only recourse is the law itself. In an oft-referenced essay, writer and activist Audre Lorde powerfully sums it up, to quote, "For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to temporarily beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change," unquote. The point I wanted to make thus is how human rights defenders can and must continue to harness the power and potency of solidarity. Often, the bigger and more important battle is not within the court, but in communities, in spaces inhabited by the people from whom we draw constant inspiration and strength. As mentioned by Professor Bello, we must grab each chance we get to explain to people how the current dispensation has been mobilizing its various agencies to undermine our rights and freedoms at every opportunity. The thousands killed during abusive anti-drug operations by the police, unrelenting attempts to muzzle media organizations like Rappler and ABS-CBN, and stifle freedoms of speech, expression, and access to information, countless human rights defenders and activists being harassed, attacked, arbitrarily arrested, and even killed. It is equally imperative as well that we listen to people's thoughts and insights and take these into account in the hopes of actually reaching them and helping them activate that side of them that is more compassionate, more humane, and more conscious and assertive of their rights, both as individuals and as Filipinos. The students here, for example, can begin by taking active part as members and supporters of human rights organizations in the country. Ultimately, in the face of government repression on practically all fronts, the struggle can be won through decisive collective action. Thank you.
So thank you for the perspective from Amnesty International about individual actions that can also be organized and on a community level.